Hello everyone, welcome to Stormworks Build and Rescue, and welcome to a bit of a sea trial of my boat here. So I'm just testing out my boat and making sure everything works before it's uploaded. Upload coming soon, by the way. And I was kind of thinking to myself, this would have been a good boat to sort of document what I'd done and how I did stuff, because it's always nice having that kind of memory, so that if you want to use something again or you want to know how you did something, you can kind of look back and see, right, that's how I hooked up that generator and that's how I got such good performance, or that's how I made that look really good. So I've decided that for my next project I will be making a series on it and everyone will get to watch it. So my next project will be a hospital ship. Now, hospital ships are basically just a big ship, and sometimes they're purpose built, but most of the time they are converted from either like replenishment vessels or like even tankers have been converted. So the USNS Comfort and the USNS Murphy are both converted oil tankers, and they can go anywhere in the world. Obviously there needs to be water, but they can go practically anywhere in the world and provide aid to anyone that needs it in times of natural disaster or that kind of thing. And that's what I want to achieve here. So everyone remembers the hospital that you have to go to in one of the first missions. I think you have to go here and you bring in the patients and basically leave them there and they get better. Now, obviously when you look at the map there are a few hospitals. We've got one in Hull Town, we've got one in the fishing village, and then we have one over in Lighthouse Uppbeat. But they're all very far away from the places up here. All these kind of areas up here where often it's maybe a 20-minute steam to get here, especially once you get into the Arctic where you've only got one for the whole Arctic. With that in mind, we want people to be able to get better and get healed on the scene or as close to the scene as possible. So that's where the hospital ship comes in. It means that even when we're in the remote areas of the Arctic, or whether we're in some fairly remote area out here even, it means that people can get medical attention when they need it. Now this will be especially helpful because I also have a second idea for this series, and that's to develop a mission. So the mission will be basically that there's some kind of natural disaster, not quite sure what yet, but a natural disaster, and the hospital ship has to be dispatched to provide kind of relief and medical support to people affected by it. Now this is good because it means that the hospital ship has a use for a start, and hopefully it might inspire some other missions to be made that don't require you to bring people to a hospital, because as realistic as that is, you can't always get to a hospital from where you are. It could take hours, it could take even sometimes days in rescue situations to actually get to a hospital. So this way, it makes a much more sort of realistic setup for the whole game nearly. But obviously that's thinking big. But for now, what we're going to do is just build the ship. So in today's episode, we're going to be building the hull. So we're here at North Harbour, and this is where we're going to be building the ship because we wanted to be able to fit inside the standard build dock. That way people can spawn it in without the use of a mission, and they can kind of be assured that it's going to be able to run smoothly enough. Before we get started, I have a list of stuff that I want this ship to be able to do, and I might as well read it out now because it's going to help us along a bit. So the hospital ship needs to have a power plant on board. Now this isn't just the power plant that's going to provide power for the ship. This is another power plant that'll be able to plug in to mains electric on shore. So the idea of having a natural disaster mission is that, say we have an island, we use somewhere like here for an example, somewhere remote but not too remote, and we will build a sort of a village here, and it will have a plug-in so that we can plug in a cable running to the ship, and that way the ship will be able to provide power to all the houses on the village and light up the town again, so that people can sort of get back to normal after a natural disaster while their own power supply is being fixed. Which could also be another part of the hospital ship's role, is to provide sort of maintenance to stuff that has been damaged in a natural disaster, which is where some of the sort of launchables and other services on board will come in. Another thing we're going to want the ship to be able to have is a range of over 200 kilometers. Now that's at a sort of average steaming speed, so we don't want it to be that you have to slow right down to get this range, but we do want it to be that you can get this range. It's in some way. So if we use here for an example, we could have Mount Paradise, we could have that erupt, and we could have a village down here that needs assistance and needs medical supplies and all that kind of stuff after maybe an earthquake or an eruption. But if we set a waypoint to Mount Paradise, it's 96 kilometers away. Now obviously, once we get to the Arctic, say we are coming from down here, in Sawyer Islands, we can go up and up and up. Eventually we'll get to the Arctic. Now the problem with the Arctic is there's no fuel stations. This means that once you're in the Arctic, unless you're able to use sort of small amounts of fuel about the place, you're very limited in what you can do and kind of need to be able to sustain your own ship on its own. So that way we need the ship to be able to get home again. So if it came up and it used 100 kilometers worth of fuel, it needs to be able to use another 100 kilometers worth to get back down again. So that's why we want the range of over 200 kilometers, so that we can have there and back and all the stuff that we need in between. The next thing our ship needs to be able to do is have a helicopter on board. Now this helicopter here I'm using as an example because it's a very good size of helicopter. It's not too big, but it's big enough that it'll work in sort of remote locations where it needs to go a while to get to places. And we could fit a hospital bed in the back and passenger seats for other people being rescued. Now we might use some helicopter that someone else has built, or we might end up building our own. I haven't decided that yet, but if we can build our own we definitely will. Sort of related to the helicopter, on the same lines at least, is the launchable boats. So the idea is that we'll have two ribs that can be launched to assist people on shore, bring people to and from the boat, and bring people and equipment that need to fix stuff on land. So the idea is we'll have two of these. One of them will probably be more passenger orientated, and the next one will probably be more towards cargo and that kind of thing. And lastly, we want the ship to have some sort of minimal towing capacity. This way, if it encounters a ship in distress, or it needs to remove a ship that's maybe crashed, that could be another part of the mission that we make in the future, it will have some sort of capacity that it can tow a boat free of some danger, or tow a boat to another place where it can be picked up by another proper tug. And if we look at this here, we can use this similar kind of setup. This area is just a winch and bollard that raises up out of the ground, and we can do exactly the same thing on the hospital ship. And it means that we're able to pack it all away nicely, and it doesn't get in the way of other operations on board, but when we need it, it is there. So it just shows you how little space we actually need for that, which makes it sort of a key thing to have on board. So this is a very rough design that I've kind of made up of what we want the ship to look like. So just a basic layout of width, height and length, and we've used the example helicopter from the game as a kind of basis for our helipad. We might end up making that a bit bigger just so that it works better. And then we have the space for the two ribs. So each rib will be able to sort of sit off to the side, and then there'll be a crane and a kind of staging area up here, and then they'll be launched over the back where there'll be maybe like a fold down area that the ribs can tie up to. If we go up to here, you can see this will be the deck level. So here will be a kind of very high bow, and that way it can kind of go into very bad weather but still remain above water at most times. It means that water won't be coming across the deck, which means that you've got a much less likely chance of being washed off, which is ideal for not getting washed off, I suppose. This section here then will be the main kind of superstructure. It will extend deeper into the hull as well, and then we've got the bridge up here. We're going to try and use most of the space for hospital amenities, because obviously hospital ship, that should be its #1 priority. And then we'll have up here as our main kind of navigation and control area, and then the top deck here will be sort of officer cabins and like high ranking doctors as well. So everything that needs to be kind of up at the top will stay up the top, and then all the kind of hospital stuff will stay at the middle. I was watching a video like a while ago about hospital ships, and one of the key issues that was highlighted about the USNS Comfort and the USNS Mercy, which are two converted tankers, is that to get from one area in them to another, you sometimes have to go across the bulkhead. Now the bulkhead was in place from when it was a tanker and was never removed during the conversion process, which means you need to go up an elevator, all the way across the top, and back down an elevator, back across to wherever you need to go, which can add minutes to a journey, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're in a hospital and you need to kind of have people moving quickly, it is very, very important that you get that done fast. With that in mind then, we want to keep as much as possible on each deck so that you have very, very minimal kind of travelling distance between things. On this level here will be sort of surgery and trauma areas, and the reason they're so low down is because we want them as close to the waterline as possible, because that's where there's the least amount of roll and movement at sea. So if you look at the ship from the front, the ship can be rolling 5 degrees. If we use here as an example of our waterline, if the ship rolls 5 degrees that way there, it's not much of a movement. But if it rolls the same distance, it has to roll all the way across to there, all the way across back there. So having them on this level here means that there's the minimal amount of movement. So there's not much more we can kind of do with this for now. It'll be a good reference to kind of come back to at later stages where we can kind of see what we've done to plan and what we've kind of changed along the way. But for now we may as well just start building the hull, because that's the quickest and easiest way to do it. So the first place we're going to work on is the bow. Now we're not going to start from the bottom, we're actually going to start from the very top of the bow, because this is the only area I actually have in mind that I know exactly what I want it to look like. So it's easier to just start with that and kind of get it over with, and it means then we can make everything else to kind of fit around it. So the bow will eventually kind of curve itself in like that up at the top, and then that way it kind of surrounds the top deck a bit and provides a bit of shelter for it. So if we kind of start with that kind of shape, might be a good place to start. So if we use these ones here maybe, and we just kind of gradually begin to curve it back. We'll use these ones again actually, and we'll take that back as far as we can. I'm going for 7.75 each side as a kind of guide for our width, sorry. So we'll drag that all the way back until it meets that kind of width, and then we can work on making it look good. So that's not a bad looking shape so far. It's not quite as wide as I'd wanted, but actually maybe that's enough. Looking at it, it looks like it could be enough. We don't need it to be huge. If we just measure that for now and see what that is. It is 13.75, so 6.75. Okay, so it's 2 meters wider than it should have been. But we'll go with that for now. If we need to, we can change it. So next thing we need is a 2x2 pyramid, and we will use these down to this lower level before we then curve it down towards the bottom of the bow. I could do an X bow, but I don't really see how it would benefit this kind of boat, I don't think. Obviously in real life it might provide more stability, but in Stormworks it's only really for looks. So although it does give us more space inside, that would be something to consider. But still, I think it's not enough to kind of make it all a bit complicated and do that. Okay, so we've got our bow area kind of the shape we wanted, and then we will fill that in to see what it looks like from on deck. So obviously this will all curve up and be nice looking, but for now that's a pretty good start, and it's a good enough height as well, because if we imagine our character is about this tall, we can still see over it. If we move forward, we can still see over it a bit, but it also means that if a wave comes over, we don't get washed off the side, which is kind of the whole point. Just that's basically 20% of this game at least. Don't get washed off the side. The other 84% 40. Where did I get 40 from? The other 80% is a kind of mix of frustration at builds and getting angry at megalodons for breaking your boat while you're on a sea trial. Well, that's what it is for me anyway. So there's the bow, all enclosed, and it looks decent enough, I think. Now, I'm not quite sure whether I want it to be that the bow is where, like up here, if that's where we have our mooring equipment and that kind of stuff, or whether that should be on the next level down, sort of within the hull. But we can decide that once we see how big the hull actually gets. So, now that we have that, we can kind of measure where things are going to go. So we know this area is a safe enough place to build, and it won't get in the way. So if we measure up 9, and then on the 9th block do that, that is our deck level. So say the superstructure comes out there, that will be the floor level of the next deck, and the ceiling level of this deck. So if we go up another 9, do another one, and then another 9, and then this should be where our bridge is, I think. So if our bridge is about here, then we've got a sort of big box of just rooms and stuff like that. Now the interesting bit is going to be going downwards to see how far down it can go. So there's 9, and 9, and 9, and should we go for another one? 9. Okay, let's see. How's that going to be in terms of height? Not too bad. I have to remember though that I need to get a mast on the top of this as well. So this area here that I'm doing is kind of our keel. This will be our keel, and then that 3 block gap will probably be where our keel tunnel is. I always add that space, but I somehow never have actually got around to making a keel tunnel. So that's something I'm definitely going to try to do on this one. So yeah, that's going to be a tall boat, definitely, and for only 40 meters long. Could look strange. Let's measure how big this one section is on its own. So if we go back to there, it's already 15 meters long. So 40 meters. Might have been optimistic because that's all we're getting with 40 meters. It's doable, but yeah, may end up looking a bit weird. We'll see. So next big decision is, do we have a bulbous bow? Because we imagine that coming down to there, and then we'll do a few of these ones here. That will come all the way down. Do we want it to be that the ship has a bulbous bow? Now, bulbous bow in real life is sort of, I'll put a picture up of it now, but what it does is it breaks apart the water in front of the ship to make it easier for the ship to go through, so it creates another bow wave in front of the ship's bow wave, and it just makes the ship way more fuel efficient, and also can sometimes improve its kind of sea keeping as well. But it doesn't do any of that in Stormworks, so the only reason I'd be putting it in would be for aesthetic purposes. So like, the question of whether or not we need it, and whether or not it would still look good without it. It would still look good without it, but how good is the question. So I am going to try a bulbous bow, I think. Now this means we kind of need to work out our draft. So the draft is how much of the boat sits underneath the water, so how much of the boat you can see really. I have another 36 meter boat that had a 4 meter draft, so kind of expecting this one will probably end up about the same, if not more, because it's going to be a lot heavier. But it is also wider, so it has a more area for the water to be kind of held up by. I don't know, how does it work? Can't remember. So if we use this block here, if we can, not sure quite what I'm doing here. If we use this and try and sort of make the shape of a bulbous bow, then we'll have a look and see what it looks like. We might end up just not using it, but it's worth a go. There's no point kind of writing it off without even trying it. So put one of these in here, kind of curve it down a wee bit more. I'm not the best at bulbous bows, I'll admit that. I'm proud enough of my other stuff that I can admit that bulbous bows are where I fall short. So then we need to kind of work its way back down into the main hull. Maybe we should do that by having another layer of that before then. Does that work? That will do fine for me, I think. This is going to be how well I can incorporate it into the rest of the hull, I suppose. So let's get that like that. You know what? If I can make it work and have that kind of shape, I'd be pretty happy with that. That'll be nice. So before we do that, we should maybe fill in this area so we know kind of what we're working with at that end. So I'll fill this in and I'll get back to you in a minute. So we have our main kind of bulk of our bow filled up now. So we know kind of what way it's going to end up here, which means we can kind of start to build our bulbous bow. Now, if we use these blocks here, I'm thinking we could maybe do some kind of nice design where it sort of tapers down into the bulbous bow, hopefully. And then if we use one of these, then we can kind of do that. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. I feel like that's all I ever say, is just do this and then do that, and don't actually explain what it is, but it's only because I'm making it up as I go along and I haven't a clue what I'm doing. So yeah, sorry about that. Right. How's this looking? I think it's all alright-ish. It's not perfect. I'm no sort of Da Vinci of bulbous bows, but it might just work. Yeah, this is why I leave bulbous bows off my ships most of the time, but just thought it'd be a bit different with this one. Okay, that's not going to work because it needs to merge into there. So we need, what do we need? I don't know. This, would that work? If we use the 1x2 permits. It might work. Okay, that's good. Progress has been made. Not much, but progress nonetheless. The amount of time stuff just lines up like this and it just works is beyond belief. Like, it doesn't look great, but it means that I can kind of merge them two pieces together without much hassle. So that's good. Ooh, that's going to be a pretty thick bulbous bow. Nothing like a kind of cool big ship, big bulbous bow kind of thing. Just in the sort of, is that supposed to be on that ship kind of thing? Which is what I fear it might look like. So how do we approach the rest of the bottom of the hull then? I'm going to give 1x4s a try. Hopefully that'll kind of work for most of it. And then these ones here for the side. Oh, that's not going to work at all actually. Damn it. Okay, let's try this from here then. Oh, we need to actually get rid of a lot more than I thought. Like that. And then maybe I kind of spoke a bit too soon there. Maybe this will work. What we just need to do is use these. Like, this is just going to leave us a massive section of just huge panels. Just one big massive side of that, which might look stupid, but if it works, I'd be happy enough with it. I just hope it doesn't look too tall, that's the only thing. Nah, it'll be grand. We'll do something to make it look good. So this is going to actually use a lot of space here, of just kind of getting the whole flattened into like a kind of flat wall. ideally we wouldn't flatten the wall, but it's the only way to kind of do it in Stormworks at the moment. Just with how sort of limited we are. I will leave that one there because then we can have these along the bottom level of the hull. So we'll leave that like that. But we'll do... yeah, we'll do them there. What we might also do is kind of leave a step in the hull to kind of lead down to the keel and make the keel a bit more pronounced, but I don't know, we'll see. Drag that back a bit and finish off this bit then. Okay, so that bit there kind of filled in, works nicely enough. I have just remembered though, we need a bow thruster. So the bow thruster is going to be just a tunnel basically through the hull. Here might work, hoping it does, but we'll have to give it a little bit of a test fit just to see. Don't need to be that tall though, do we? There's no harm in having it that tall, I suppose. Okay, that worked better than I sort of thought. Just fill in that bit there, just to kind of make it a bit neater at the edges. So our tunnel thruster will then be able to sit in there. We might actually be able to use one of these propellers in here, possibly, but we'll see. Maybe not. Yeah, it's not bad looking. Okay, what next? What next indeed? Here, this is kind of going to be a problematic area, I think, but we'll have a go anyway. I think I will leave a sort of step in the hull down to the keel, but we aren't going to do it the whole way along. Just as long as we can kind of blend it in nicely at the end. So if we start it maybe here and run that all the way along to the back, and then fill that in just to see what it looks like. Nice. Okay, so that leaves us with an extremely flat bottomed hull, which isn't ideal, but for Stormworks it will work. So let's see how much length we've got now. So bulb is actually longer than the front of the bow, but we'll measure from the bow anyway. So if we measure back 40 meters, that brings us to there, sort of. If we drop down behind that, that brings us to there. So we are running out of space. So now that we have the bow at a kind of build-offable level, don't know if that's a word or not, but I just made it a word. It's the level at which we can build off it without it kind of getting in the way. We can kind of now start to divert our attention to the back and also the top. So we had kind of roughly estimated a 4 meter draft earlier. So if we measure up from the keel to 4 meters, it is on that sort of line there. So what I will do is kind of wrap a bit of a blue line around the hull, and that way it kind of tells us where our draft, where our water line is, sorry. So imagine blue for water, that's our water line. So if we just continue back about here, we know, okay, that's going to be our water line, and then that way we can kind of work everything else off that. So because we want this to be able to work in sort of harsh environments and harsh conditions, we do want it to have quite a high freeboard. So the freeboard is the space between the water line and the top of the kind of weather decks or whatever. I don't know the proper terminology for it, but basically how high it is from the water line to the first like accessible deck. So we want that to be fairly high, but not too high, because we also want it to be fairly accessible for boats landing in. So if we just drag out a quick floor here, so that is on deck 1. So if we think about this one here as deck 0, this is deck 1. So then we have deck 2, and that will probably be our main deck. So it isn't the highest freeboard, but it's high enough. Means water kind of can slosh over the deck a wee bit, but it won't wipe someone out, and it won't come over the deck too much. It just can kind of skim over it, and that's fine. Obviously there'd be sort of a wall alongside, maybe 3 blocks high, like this, as a kind of protective guardrail around the deck, but that is in essence what we're kind of going for here, not that size of deck, or that size of freeboard. So if we think about it, deck 0 is here, so deck 0 will be everything sort of maintenance related, so we could maybe have a maintenance store up in deck 0 here at the front, and then underneath deck 0 will be fuel tanks and the keel tunnel. So the keel tunnel will go down the middle of the boat from sort of like the back of the engine room, and you can probably access it in a few different areas, and it'll bring you to a few different areas, all that kind of cool stuff that I'll probably add in a bit later. And it'll bring you all the way to the front where you'll have bow thruster controls and bow thruster motors and that kind of stuff. And then on each side of that then will be fuel tanks. So obviously for 200 kilometers range we're going to need quite a lot of fuel. And fairly efficient engines, I'd hope, as well. So they should both work kind of hand in hand to give us a good range. So plenty of fuel and plenty of fuel efficiency. Hopefully more than 200. That's our minimum kind of range. 200 kilometers is what we're aiming for. So actually probably imagine that about here all the way to maybe here, it's that whole area in there and that whole area in there, just diesel. And then we're also going to have a jet fuel store, so for the helicopter that'll sit about here somewhere, it will have its own fuel pump, and that way that you can kind of use the helicopter as much as you want without kind of worrying, oh dear, is this going to run out of fuel and we're not going to be able to use it anymore. It's always got enough fuel to kind of keep it going. Well, obviously until the ship runs out, but we'll hope that that would be kind of fairly impossible with the amount of fuel it will hold. Or alternatively, we could use diesel engines for the helicopter. Might not be as powerful, or it might not be as kind of normal for a helicopter, but it might work out better for us in the long run. I think the first thing we should do is make the shape of the back of our boat. So the shape it'll kind of take on, and then we can kind of work the transom and the stern out from that. So we first need to kind of decide how long we're willing for the boat to be able to be going, like how long we want it to be. I had aimed for 40 meters, but as we saw a minute ago, we're not going to get anywhere near that. We're probably looking at more like 45, so if we had another 5 meters onto that as a kind of example, it'd be somewhere about there that we'll end up probably cutting off the end of the boat. But you know, that might still be enough. So we're going to use these bits here that I've made at the corner as the kind of area to kind of sketch in what we want in the kind of shape of the back of the boat. So we wanted to kind of gradually get narrower and narrower and narrower before it kind of gets very narrow, and then not so narrow, or well, not narrow, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe how tight, I don't know what the word is, but how tight the turn is. So it's going to be sort of starting off fairly shallow. Is that the word? I don't know. I don't know the words for these things anymore. I had it on the tip of my tongue like 5 minutes ago, and now it's just gone. But you get my idea. So it starts kind of less sort of aggressively and nice and gentle kind of turn. Then it gets sharper, and then it gets very kind of sudden, so like nearly 90 degrees, and then it kind of calms down a bit and smooths off in the end. That doesn't look bad for a first attempt. Can maybe tweak it a bit as we go, but we'll work off that for now. So what I'm doing here is taking that kind of template we made, and I'm going to copy it, and we're going to paste it 3 times, possibly 4. Yeah, we'll do 4, and that gives us our wall, because we did that at the top of the wall level, which meant I did by accident, but it works out the same either way. And that gives us then our level at which we can kind of start to work our way in with the hull. So because it starts with that one, we'll probably use this one first, this block, and see how far that will bring us down to this level here where we want to be at. Yeah, it's not perfect. Let's see what else we can maybe do to it to make it work a bit better. If we can use that kind of gap there, that's fine. We'll just stick with that, because that might actually work as a good place for our propellers to come out of. Yeah, that'll work quite nicely actually for that. Okay, we'll do that. Or should we maybe raise it up by 1? Okay, we'll raise it up by 1 and use that as our kind of propeller level then, we'll call it. So we need another... I should put one of these in my hotbar. Don't have any, but I don't have any room for them either, because it's one of my less kind of I have all my commonly used wedges in here, and it's not really one of them. So then to go alongside this one, thinking we kind of work with that kind of angle for now, and then bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, and another time again. Didn't realize we had 4 of them. Kind of mix the words 3 and 4 together there. 4. Hope it catches on. And then at the back we will... Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay. So, how do we make these match in the middle then? That's the kind of challenging bit here, I suppose. Because I don't know. Do it like this, where we use 2x1 wedges, or inverse pyramids, sorry, and then that's not gonna line up. Oh, why does everything never works, I suppose. Why does nothing ever work? Okay, we'll work from this side instead with a 2x4 thing. Oh, that's not right either. Okay. What about if we do that here and then use the wedges? That might work well. Probably do this from the outside so I can see what it looks like. It is perfect. It is perfect, Emondo. Okay, then get the back to curve. Now, this is where I'd sort of thought about maybe having a sort of amphibious area, so like a kind of dock that folds down and then we can park the boats there, but with that kind of shape it might be a bit difficult. We'll still try and work something out. Actually, I suppose it doesn't need to fold down, it could be a permanent thing, because if it's at the back, it's already fairly sheltered, so it's not going to get damaged in like waves or anything like it would on the side or the front. So we could maybe just make it a permanent design rather than a sort of mobile design, which will reduce lag as well, because the more we can kind of keep things as one piece, the less laggy the whole build is going to be, which is going to be really important given the size of this thing. So just doing another extra layer of this all the way around somehow. Just kind of experimenting with a few different designs. That one there did not work. Let's try with these 1x2 inverse pyramids. Okay, let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's alright. Is that? Okay, that's fine. I was kind of worried that was a different piece than it was, but we good. We are all good. Okay. Coming together a wee bit, I suppose. So if we sort of block that in like that, and sort of imagine this, say a rudder kind of hangs down here, our propeller will then sit, not like that, didn't mean to do that. Propeller will then sit here, if I could clip it properly. Okay, it's a pretty crude propeller, but you get the idea. Propeller sits there, rudder sits there, and then the rest of the hull, damn that got dark, and the rest of the hull blends in around it then. So let's work on that now. What I need to do now is kind of, if we use this, it's sort of the first place I came to, but it might work alright. We now need to work out how close to that we can get the propeller, that it'll still fit in between the roof of the kind of area and the rudder. So there seems to work, but does it go through? Oh, it doesn't, that's good. Kind of expecting to kind of clip through the roof a bit, but that's perfect the way it is now. So we use a small rudder, and we'll actually turn off our symmetry for this, because top tip, if you're placing rudders and you're doing 2 of them, turn symmetry off, because these wee things here, the little plus symbols you see, they both need to be on the same side, and if you use symmetry, this one here that's on the plus there will be here because they're symmetrical, whereas now when I press D, which is the positive value, they'll both turn to the right, meaning the boat will turn to the right. So it all just makes everything easier in the long run, rather than having to come back down and change them or use a numerical inverter. It's just simpler. Just makes sense. Okay. Did I turn it back on? I did. That's good. That's, yeah, also when you do that, make sure you turn the symmetry back on then when you need it. Otherwise you end up just doing like half an hour of work and realizing you have to do it all over again and copy and paste and all that kind of stuff. It ain't fun. So what I'm doing here is the prop shaft. So this is what carries the sort of turning power from the engine to the propeller, or the wheel as some people call it. So what this thing I'm doing here is, well, I just kind of deleted something by accident there, but what I was trying to do before I deleted that by accident is this. So that's just to kind of make it look like the propeller shaft isn't just kind of hanging there. It makes it look like it's supported and it's not kind of just sitting freely and doing nothing. Makes it just look more sturdy and makes the whole boat sort of feel more sturdy looking, which is good because it means it looks, if it looks the part, it usually acts the part as well. Now, I've just realised a massive issue here. That won't work. That cannot work. Okay, right. What we should have done was think about that earlier. So what do we need in there? We need, that was a 1x1 inverse permit. So drag that like that and just kind of continue up with the 1x1s maybe. Like so. If it works, it works. That's what we're going for here. So here we have the 3 blocks of kind of level. Well, not level, but 3 blocks of kind of keeping it simple and flat so that we can take the prop shaft out without it interfering with the wedges. And then on the other side of that, we'll go back to the wedges. And it means, or no, we'll go back to the pyramids. And it means that the hole will continue to kind of curve its way out. So if we go like that, this will kind of house our bow thrusters. Or no, not bow thrusters, they're at the back. So stern thrusters. So this little kind of bit that I'm doing now will go a bit further. Just kind of do it like that. And then like that. And pull that bit out as far as it'll go, kind of. Maybe do it there and up like that. So that it then gives the bow thruster or the stern thruster somewhere to sit. And it means the stern thruster isn't just hanging down either, which is a way we could have done it, but hopefully this will look better. It'll look more robust, because everything needs to look robust on a boat. Ideally it would also be robust, but that's less important maybe. Oh no, done it again. That's not gonna work. Damn. Right, How do I fix this one? Forgot I picked the lowest level. This is a consistent issue. So would that then need, okay, what we'll do, take whatever we've already selected. We'll cut that bit off at the top because we don't need that yet. But we do need that bit there. Oh no, we don't actually. We actually need to get rid of that bit so it doesn't go. So we move that across by 1 and out by 1. He's going to interfere with the rudder then, that's unfortunate. What I will do... Oh. Maybe I didn't need to move it out by 1. Okay, that was a mistake then. It's fine to sit there, it just needed to go across by 1. That's alright. I can live with that. And then put this one in here to fill that gap. And then this one in here to fill this gap. And then what do we do here? Oh, it did need to move back one. Damn it. Oh, for God's sake. Right. Is that going to work? Please, 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 please work. Hooray. It did. Okay. So, to make the propeller shaft look, or not the propeller shaft, the rudder kind of holder thing look more robust, then we will sort of beef it up at that end. Can't really do much here, can we? No, we can't. That's unfortunate. We could move that back a bit and all of that kind of assembly, but don't need to really, so we won't. What we will do is just continue on with a flat surface there, and then that saves all this kind of stuff here. So what we'll do, just to make it easier for us, is copy this, move it across every one each time, paste them all in, connect them all together, if it'll let me. Start with the green one, do we? Yeah, we do. Right, now this bit. So now we've got to the bit of the hull that I kind of left sticking down as a keel, and actually this should end up looking quite good because it just kind of nicely flows in. You don't even notice it's there nearly. I'm going to leave that bit kind of sticking out like that, just to be weird looking, I suppose. What we need to do here is use one of these. That will solve that issue. If I can rotate it the right way around. There we go. So I've decided that here, wait, what? Oh, the rudder isn't in line with the propeller. Oh dear. Okay, we'll need to redo that as well then. But I've decided regardless that the sort of propeller, no, not the propeller shaft will be a bit more sort of robust because I don't currently very much like it. So it just looks like it's poking out from the hull and just kind of sitting there. Which I suppose it is, but I don't want it to look like it is. Even if it is, if you get what I mean. We want it to look, we want it to basically look like it's a big heavy piece of metal that won't kind of break or something. We don't want it to look like it's just going to fall off at the first sign of forces acting upon it. So we want it to look robust, and by doing this, hopefully we'll achieve that. So I'll add a few of these things around the place just to kind of beef it up a bit, and then there we'll end up like that. So that gives it the sort of more robust look I was talking about. And also what we could do here is take this kind of time to use different design on the actual rudder itself. So we're using a small rudder, aren't we? We'll turn our symmetry off as usual because we don't want the rudders facing the wrong way. And that one there. we can actually do then is turn on our symmetry for a start. We can make it sort of with the rudder is just the rudder, and it doesn't have a load of other stuff kind of attached to it and all that sort of nonsense it would need otherwise. So what are these? I won't talk about. I'll need to drag it through this part, won't I? Yep, I will. So one here like that. Oh, go into the top. That's not too bad, I suppose. So there we go, robust and sort of strong looking propeller system. Obviously need to kind of look this into the boat a bit. Maybe just one of these. Kind of make it look like it's curving up in. Yep, that will do. And now we've got two big. Oh, forgot about that bit. That's going to need copy and paste it over there, but we can deal with that in a second. So yeah, now we've got a sort of robust looking propeller with plenty of kind of supports and all that kind of stuff, making it look good and strong. Although I might just change these out because we've got them there. They're both on the same angle. But I could just use one of these instead and get a similar kind of a look from it. Could also maybe use them underneath, but if we don't need to, it might just be overkill. Probably don't even need that one, but what I'm thinking is it could actually sit on top of the main case for the propeller. That looks better, so it does. Okay, I'll stick with that, and I'll copy and paste it over. Give me a minute. Ta-da! We now have matching rudders and matching propellers and matching everything. It's all symmetrical. Just great. So we're kind of getting towards the point where we look like we have a functioning hull. If we just put in the water around it, we can kind of see what it'll look like. So there's our water line, our rough water line. Might sit a bit lower or a bit higher, depending on what way we fill it, but that's what we're going for now. So what I'm going to do, I think, is fill in this deck here. Actually, I'll save it now because I don't want it to be that this kind of gets in the way later. Hospital ship. Yes, we'll overwrite that. Speaking of overwriting stuff, just be entirely honest, this is the 6th time I've made a hull for this video and the 4th time recording the video. But this one is the best yet. This has been the best looking. And if you think this looks bad, then yeah, you'll be glad I did it 6 times, because the other ones looked terrible. Okay, so there's that deck filled in. Now it'll obviously not be very accurate, but it will give us a brief kind of idea of what the ship will look like. Now, just while I remember, I didn't put weights in the keel, which is something I usually do, and it just means that the keel will act like a keel. Most keels are sort of like the backbone of a boat, and if you see in some like sailing boats and stuff like that, they will have weights added to them, or they'll be a weight in themselves. So they could be made out of like lead or something instead of like steel like the rest of the boat, and it keeps the boat sitting on the keel and sitting kind of neatly on the keel. It won't make a massive difference because that's not a lot of weight and there's going to be a lot of buoyancy in this, but it'll make enough difference that it should stay steady while we test it. So let's spawn it in and see what it looks like. Ooh, it's just bouncy with no weight in it. Yeah. You know what, that's not a bad size. I was kind of hoping that it wouldn't look too big, and I'm glad that it's turned out like this, because it doesn't look massive. If we imagine it once it's sitting on the waterline, it'll look even better. So that's really good actually. And then if we go up here, we can see how good our deck looks here. Nice enough. There we go. There's our deck. If we imagine this as 2 decks, so we have a lot of space to fill over the coming weeks and coming videos. My aim is to do 2 videos a week, so I think I put it as Tuesday and Saturday. So between them 2 videos, that means that I'll have time to add stuff, and people will have time to comment and tell me what to do. I had thought of one video a week, but if it's one video a week, then it's taken a week to kind of see the progress, and it means that I have to sort of wait before I can work on stuff, before we can get kind of comments and that kind of thing. So 2 videos will hopefully just work out better. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this, because I quite enjoyed it. I think this will be a good series. And if you want to see more, and you want to see this book being built, please subscribe and let me know actually what you think in the comments as well. We'll leave that episode here. It's probably going to be a wee bit long, so sorry for that. So next time we're going to work on the superstructure and all that kind of stuff, but we'll get to that next time. So anyway, thanks for watching, and see you later. Bye bye.